Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss here with us on Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. It is a top 10 matchup, this game being played at 6 p.m., a night game in Athens. Stephen, if the Rebels are going to win it, how are they going to do it?
How are they going to do it? I mean, there's been a whole bunch of teams that have asked that question over the last 5 years. And I think the situation is you need players on offense that can make plays against that defense. And that defense isn't exactly as good as what Georgia's defense normally is. But don't get anything wrong. They are still good. But Jackson Dart and Trey Harris, who was not available for the Alabama game, can stretch that defense downfield. Quinshon Judkins can force that. Cody Schrader from Missouri went over 100 yards last week. So you have the offensive firepower to be able to affect that defense. Now, Georgia, their middle linebacker and their quarterback of their defense got injured against Missouri. So they're going to be breaking in a new guy. Ole Miss goes as fast as anybody in the conference. And they honestly, on offense, they can rely on bust. And they scheme things up to where they're a bust in the coverage. So if you do not have a quarterback lining yourself up, that is going to make those busts more possible. And also, this Georgia front seven probably isn't as good as what it was. Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis is not walking through that door for the Georgia Bulldogs. So they're alternating like a run defensive end and a pass defensive end, and the tempo can kind of take that away. And honestly, other than quoting miracle and doing all sorts of good luck charms, that's about all I've got, guys.
So let me ask you this. You know, in terms of this game, everybody talks about Georgia and what their weaknesses are and how you look to combat those. But let me ask you this. How does Ole Miss hold up against the strengths of Georgia? How do they hold up against an offense that people keep saying, oh, they're not really that good, and then boom, 50 piece with the extra sauces on the side for free? And you know they like to get stingy with the sauce. So how do you look at this Georgia team and say, hey, we will not only be able to exploit their weaknesses, but we'll be able to stand up to their strengths as well if you're Ole Miss?
This is the game that Pete Golding was hired for, honestly. Everybody pointed to the Alabama game, but this is the game that Pete Golding was brought in. And Lane Kiffin is very familiar with what Kirby Smart likes to do, both offensively and defensively. They sat in coaching rooms. So as far as being prepared and game plan-wise, what to do, I think Ole Miss is going to be in a good spot to be in the right position. Now, you are right. This is going to be the best offensive line that Ole Miss has faced this year. You're going to have a situation where Carson Beck is basically back there playing 7-on-7 at times, playing quarterback. You have to figure out a way to get pressure on Carson Beck. You have to get him to drop his eyes and get his eyes off of downfield and get him off of his spot. I think that's the best chance you got. Georgia's converting third downs at about 55% on offense, which is good enough for fourth nationally. Their defense, they're giving up third down conversions at 26%, which is good enough for three nationally. So it doesn't take a rocket science to know that whether you can stay on the field and whether you can get off the field is likely going to determine this football game.
Talk to me a little bit more, Stephen, about Quinshon Judkins, because I think he's got to be one of the keys to victory here for Ole Miss. 5 touchdown runs in his last 2 games. He's hitting his hottest point at the season, hopefully at the right time. How do you see him matching up against Georgia, and how crucial is he going to be?
I honestly, I think Quinshon's the best running back in the SEC. Now, Cody Schrader did have some success against Georgia, but that's kind of an aberration against that defense. 120 yards is not the expectation, no matter who they're playing against. Occasionally, teams go off, even to go back to when Kirby was at Alabama. Generally 65 to 85 yards. If you're in that range as a top tier running back, you've done enough to affect the linebackers to allow you to create shots in the passing game. I mean, it's the same formula to beat Georgia as it would have been the same formula to beat Alabama in 2013. It's the same thing. You need a mobile quarterback, you need shots downfield, and you need to be able to stick with the running game. It won't necessarily always be effective. You might see a stat line from Quinshon that's 20 carries and 85 yards and a touchdown, but Quinshon had a monumental job with this Georgia defense. And if Ole Miss can do that, I think they'll be in pretty good shape.
Stephen, as you look at the SEC West, the way this will shake out for the Rebels, the SEC championship's in God's hands now. That's Alabama. They're likely not going to lose the rest of the way. What is the overall goal then for this Ole Miss team?
Honestly, my prediction, and I've been preparing people on my show that 2014 TCU, that's probably about to be in the cards for Ole Miss. But I think Ole Miss's path is they beat Georgia, Georgia beats Alabama and eliminates them so they don't become a question anymore, and you hope to slide into that 4 slot. You hope for chaos. You hope that the NCAA comes down on Michigan. You hope that Ohio State loses to Michigan. You hope that Oregon beats Washington, those games, and you don't need Texas to win the Big 12. And you're just hoping that you have enough to get to that 4 spot, because what I think is going to happen, and I'm not going to go out and say they're corrupt or anything like that, but after the game, Ole Miss is going to go up, and going after that Mississippi State game, whenever that poll comes out, Ole Miss is going to be sitting there at 4th, and then after the championship games, Ole Miss is going to slide down to 5th or 6th.
So you're saying there's still college football playoff conversation in Oxford as we speak, without the SEC championship really on the table?
Yes, the conversation is there. We are not dumb. We know that it's a long shot, but it's not like so you're telling me it's a chance long shot, but it is a long shot. But you're still playing meaningful football games in November. And honestly, this is what I've been telling people that have been listening to my show. This Ole Miss Georgia game day being at the game, they don't go to games in November that don't mean anything.
No.
And you're going to win one of these eventually. And it's important to keep getting into them. It's what Clemson did before they broke through in the mid 2000s or whenever, that they kept getting the opportunity and was Clemsoning. Everybody knows about Clemsoning. And then all of a sudden Clemson got through and they hit that next level. One of these games, as long as Ole Miss keeps going down this road and getting this opportunity, Ole Miss is going to kick the door down.
Yeah.
And if they do that, they have a chance to, with the brand and everything going on with Lane Kiffin, they have a chance to have a pretty cool brand moving forward in college football.
Yeah, coming up, guys, let's do a little Sell Me Why. Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss, thank you for our game of the week and joining College Football Kickoff Live.